Well, thanks for waking up early and talking with me about the what's going on with you and talking about the new film and everything. So I do appreciate that. And I guess what first question really is I know I was reading your bio and I know you're originally from Havana, Cuba, and you immigrated over to the States to Miami. What was it like growing up in Miami when you first moved from Cuba to the States? And what kind of got you into filmmaking, I guess, at that point? Was it something when you were young, you always wanted to do it, or was it something that you just slowly got into it after a while?
No, I mean, it was nowhere near in my radar. I mean, I did start writing when I was very young. It was actually like in the sixth grade.
Mm-hmm.
My teacher, and I was still learning English, and we had to. One of the assignments was to write a short story, and so I chose to write something that's it was very like Scooby Doo kind of thing. It was
Yeah.
my class went on a field trip and the bus broke down, and so we go to like the nearest house, and it happens to be this haunted house. And it went over so well in the class, like everybody loved it. So I was like, oh, I gotta keep doing this. So I just kept writing at that point, and I wrote a novel by the time that I was like 16. Which is probably not very good, but it was still a big accomplishment at that point.
Yeah.
But that's really what I want. That's what I went to school for, was to be a novelist. Like the film aspect of it was not anywhere in my radar.
Yeah.
And then I went on to go to school and kind of how to get a job as a novelist. So I convinced myself that when I got a law degree, that I could have some financial stability while I wrote my novel on the side, and that you start practicing and you really have time for nothing.
Yeah.
So I didn't write for a long, long time, and then I met a friend of mine who was working on a screenplay and helping him fix it or work on it, I guess. I started going, wow, it's a lot easier to write than it is than a novel. I think I can do this better, and so I started writing my own. And then after that, when going to Pitch Fest and sending my screenplays to people was not working out, I was like, okay, I'm gonna make one movie, and it's gonna be so amazing that everybody is gonna be like, wow, we have to hire her to write the next one because the writing's so brilliant on this.
Yeah.
And of course, that didn't happen. So I made my second one, and then so now I'm by my fifth. Nobody has yet to recognize what a brilliant writer I am.
I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that have recognized. I mean, you've already done five. You've already created 5 films in just 5 years. So I mean, you're doing something right. You're getting people's attention by, keeping at it and creating films and creating compelling content for people. So you're obviously doing something right. As from what I can tell. Now, going back to your writing horror, was horror always something that you were more interested in than other genres, or were you always kind of like more interested in the dark side of kind of like writing and filmmaking? Or are you pretty well? I assume you're very well rounded in film, but what drew you to horror? Was it just kind of that one story you wrote in sixth grade that was kind of like a Scooby Doo story, and you were like, I like how it feels to write these types of stories and write these films and explore the dark side. Like, was that always something you always wanted to do?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up. My mom was loved watching old thrillers and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I never was into cartoons much or anything like that. I would just stay up watching these old thrillers with her.
Yeah.
And she especially loved Alfred Hitchcock, and so I was like, he's my all-time favorite.
Yeah.
So by the time that I wrote that first story, that really was what I was reading as well.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading, mysteries and stuff like that for teenagers, I guess, even though I wasn't a teenager myself. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's always what's interested me. I really, like, even now I had to write an action film for somebody else,
Hmm.
and it was tough because it's just not what comes naturally to me.
Yeah.
Um, and I made it incredibly dark, so there's still
Okay.
there's still people being dismembered and
That's
stuff like that.
you still get your hallmark on there and everything, where it's like, I'm writing an action film, but I'm gonna write it
You
my own
gotta
way.
put some Lou in
Yeah,
there.
exactly. You got to throw a little Lou Simon into the mix and everything. So, um, it's well. I guess growing up, I mean, were you reading like old Agatha Christie type stuff, or were you reading? I mean, I know me growing up. I mean, I've always been into horror. It's always been just my favorite genre of all time, and just even reading books growing up, it was a lot of the Christopher Pike stuff or the R.L. Stein stuff. I read a lot of Goosebumps, to say the least. But was it like kind of old thriller stuff that you were reading, or an old mystery kind of novels, or was it? I mean, you said you were up watching like suspense with your mom, but when it comes to the reading side, was it just pretty much anything you get your hands on to like keep learning how to craft and how to write and everything like that too?
No, yeah, I mean, it was definitely anything. I definitely had read a lot of the Agatha Christie mysteries, and
Mm.
it was anything like it didn't necessarily have to be horror per se. Just
Yeah.
anything that was a mystery, that was mysterious, that there was some kind of suspense, or the whole all the way to very scary stuff.
Hmm.
I mean, I watched The Exorcist when I was still like I don't know, like 10 years old.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
I loved it.
Yeah.
um, so it was anything like that, like anything, like romantic comedies, or not that I don't watch those once in a while or whatever, but
Hmm.
or anything like comedies or dramas. I mean, yeah, they're okay, but it's not something that I'm like looking forward to see. And I don't think I've ever, other than maybe Titanic, I can't think of anything else like that I would have gone to the theater to watch.
Yeah, I think
Um,
we all fell into that trap with the Titanic thing. That was like one of those transcendent films I think everybody had to go see. If you didn't, I think weren't allowed to go
right,
into the theater
yeah.
anymore.
So you have to go see it. But other than that, I won't go to the theater even to this day if it's not some kind of, really good horror movie or a really good thriller with, I don't know, with some kind of interesting, unique setup of some kind.
Yeah. Well,
But it's, and I used to do like haunted houses in
mhm.
my garage, my parents' garage,
Oh, okay.
um, with my nephew. And I mean, so I don't know. I don't know where it comes from.
It's just, I mean, just one of those things that, I mean, I started watching horror when I was just super young. I remember going to the, Blockbuster Video or any video rental store and just constantly renting, slasher films and discovering horror that way. That was always my kind of genre of the slasher film. And then later on down the line, of course, getting more of an appreciation for, giallo and Italian horror and things like that. But just comparing like horror growing up, watching certain horror movies now, or when you were younger to now, I mean, do you see like kind of a revival of the horror genre at this point? I mean, you're doing something completely different where you're telling more of a personal story that has the psychological horror element, just like in the new film 3. It's, I guess, at its core a horror film. Has horrific things happening, but it tells like a very, real story about things that are really going on in our society, unfortunately. Um, but do you think there's like everybody's like you're seeing a lot of remakes these days and things like that? But do you think horror as a whole is getting more mature and just kind of growing in a different direction from what you're used to watching, I guess?
uh, I mean, I think it's getting harder because real life has become so dark
Yeah, it has.
that the audience is, a bit jaded. I mean, I remember being super terrified when I saw the um, The Exorcist as a
Hmm.
kid. Mind you, probably I also was a kid, but
Yeah,
I saw it not too long ago, and I'm like, this isn't scary at all. So is
yeah,
it because I was a kid, or is it just a big, now, first we've seen movies that are far more, advanced than that.
hmm
Um, But or even Psycho. I mean, if you watch Psycho again, it's like takes forever.
Yeah,
It's like 45 minutes before anything happens, and you're like, wow, they really took their time in setting up character.
hmm
And one of the things that a lot of people and reviews in past films I've heard, it's like, it's like 30 minutes before anything happens. Well, I mean, if you don't care about the characters, then why should you care when they start dying? So I'd rather take my time in, setting up characters.
exactly.
But that's not even, that's 20, 25 minutes before something happened.
hmm
But back then it was like 45 minutes, and nobody saw anything of it.
Yeah.
It's a different society where we want immediate gratification.
hmm
When people read your scripts, they'll be like, well, we need some kind of jump scare around this time. Or we need something to happen around this time to scare, like they don't want to wait that long for a scare.
Yeah.
So it's just different. I think we've come to expect our movies to have a certain formula, and when you don't do that exactly, people don't like it.
Yeah. The slow burn is almost kind of a thing of the past. There's no type of uh, build up or anything like last night. I was watching Suspiria last night. There was a screening at a local theater of mine, and I love Suspiria. I really like Dario Argento as a director, and you don't see films like that anymore where there is a lot of it's super stylized because just the Italian genre to me was always super stylized, but there isn't a whole lot. There's big moments that happen, but other than that, there's a lot of talking and walking around and psychedelic types things going on, and it's good that there's still like a love for those old films, but looking at just modern horror as an example, just with a lot of found footage and like I said, the remakes and things like that. There's just isn't. I don't know. Nobody's making horror. I feel like an old man. There's people aren't making horror films the way they used to make them anymore, except on the independent circuit. I mean, independent film is still alive and well with things that we remember, but giant studio films don't take chances on like bigger ideas or people that have ideas in their head that they want to get their point across. So I guess
I think part of it is that the audience has gotten younger. I mean, the ones who go to theaters still tend to be young teenagers.
hmm
So the content, I mean, that's why there's so much PG-13 horror now.
yeah,
Is the content is for them, because old folkies like you and I don't go to the theater that much. so they don't make films for us, they make films for them. And I mean, I've been to see a couple movies, and like there's stuff that happens at night you're remotely scary, but they're screaming because they're so young. This is their first venture into horror, and to them any little thing is scary. So, but that's good. It also makes life easier for us because we don't have to. It's hard to come up with good scares. Everything has already been done.
Yeah, most of everything. I mean, we'll see what happens with the next wave of horror. I mean, just life in general is pretty scary. So you go to the theater to still get a little scared, and but now it seems like the line's blurring. We're getting scared, but then also adding that little bit of a socio-political or just like a social kind of like film like Get Out. I think that was just to me it's a well-made film if you just took away the whole horror element, but it's so telling of our society and where we've come so far, yet we haven't come far at all. Since we're still having to make these films, and people are like shocked by, wow, is that how people really think? Or, wow, is that really what's going on? You have to kind of look in the mirror at yourself a little bit. And there haven't really been a lot of films like that to look at yourself since probably the 70s, when I guess Romero, or even the 60s when Romero came out, or Carpenter came out, or any other big horror director. Nobody's really done anything like that lately. So, I mean, hopefully more to come on that. Well, I guess with your new film 3, I mean, it seems like a pretty, it's an intense film. It's got a lot of tension. It reminded me a lot of the film Death and the Maiden a little bit with Sigourney Weaver and Ben Kingsley, where it's like taking somebody captive, but not really being sure if that's the person that's the cause of your pain. When you were writing 3, what inspiration came from writing that film, and was it something personal, or was it something just, stories that you have read, or, and things like that to kind of make that film?
No, I actually haven't. I haven't seen that film that you just mentioned.
Yeah,
I have to go
it's
look for it.
yeah, it made me think of it right away when I was like reading the synopsis, like, a woman and a man take a man captive, for a crime that he may or may not have committed, and it right away reminded me of Death and the Maiden. It started as a play, but then it was a film. I think it was from 1995, I think. So it's definitely worth checking out. I mean, it's pretty entertaining. It's only three actors in the entire film, so that's what it kind of reminded me of a lot too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen that. Now I want to go watch it.
Right.
No, actually, the original. If there was one film that originally,
Hmm.
kind of made me go, well, I can do that, was Bound.
Okay. Yes. Hmm.
And I thought, I want to do something like that. And I haven't even watched it in 20 years,
Yeah.
because I didn't want to be swayed by that story.
Yeah.
Um, but I wanted that idea of, three people in one location,
Hmm.
and just have something that's very character driven as opposed to action driven or anything else like that.
Yeah.
And and how to make that interesting enough so that you're not like, oh my god, I'm bored to death because there's three people in one place.
Yeah.
So a lot of twists and turns comes from building the suspense, and having everything that's said, that is said,
Hmm.
matter so much,
Yeah.
because there are clues to the final
Hmm.
twist in the dialogue. So
Yeah.
you have to really listen to it, and that was, to me, it was like my own, like what I said I wanted to do, and so what I set out to do, and hopefully I accomplished, was to be, have a story that is smart, and that really has you guessing the whole time
Yeah.
as to, what is really happening.
Yeah. And I like that whole, like you said, there's so many clues hidden in the dialogue, and just the portrayal that the three actors in the film. I mean, at least with only three actors, you get to concentrate on their backstory, and you kind of get to know them and relate to them and understand, empathize, sympathize, with their plight, and it does keep you guessing all the way until the end, which is a great, like, that's a testament that you as a writer and creating the characters, and there are a lot of things going on. I mean, these are pretty complex, a lot of depth in the character. And another thing too with the just the naming of the characters, was that something on purpose you wanted it to be, where they didn't have names, they were just kind of like, just like pronouns basically, it, him, her. Was that something done on purpose as well? Like, you didn't, we want to know these people, but we don't want to know their names, type of thing. I mean, was that something you did on purpose as well?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wanted them to be a stand-in for people in that situation, rather than, I mean, there's not, other than the fact that that she was raped,
Hmm.
and that he was in the army. There's not a lot of backstory to them. You
Yeah.
don't know if they have parents. You don't know if they have kids. If they're married. You don't
Hmm.
know anything about them. So and they only use names at the very end.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it was, and definitely it's for the person being, that was kidnapped.
Hmm.
That was definitely, it actually started with that, because I was like, well, I want him, since they're trying to desensitize themselves to possibly doing something horrendous to this guy,
Yeah.
they're gonna keep referring to him as an it.
Yeah.
So it started with that, and I'm like, well, if he's it, well, they're just he and she then.
Yeah.
Um, but
They're
yeah, I mean, it's the creative process is so weird, because you can start with one thought, and then it just before you know it, other stuff happens, and you don't even realize how it happened.
Yeah, exactly. It's like where did we go from A to B? It's like how did we get here? And it's like, and was the crew, was it a big crew that you were working with for the film? I mean, for such a small film, I'm sure there
No,
weren't a lot of people
it was
working
a
with you.
very, very small crew. Because we had to stay at the house while we were filming.
Hmm.
So we had just a bare minimum crew that we needed, because we were all like sleeping on air mattresses and
Yeah.
couches and stuff like that. And it was, we had 2 bathrooms for everybody. So yeah, we couldn't, there were people offering to come help me for free, and I was like, no.
I don't have space for you.
Thank you,
Sorry.
but no.
You can work for
Unless
free,
you're
but I don't have
willing
an
to
air
go
mattress.
home every night,
Yeah.
no.
Well, because you guys were shooting where? Were you guys shooting in Atlanta somewhere?
No, we actually shot in Chattanooga.
Oh, okay. Because I
Yeah,
also
it would have been great to have been in Atlanta because I could have gone home every night.
exactly. It's like I'll see you guys later. I'm gonna sleep in my own bed tonight. Good luck out here. Because I
No,
also
I wish. No, it was Chattanooga. So I mean, we were sharing rooms and stuff like that, and I don't think I had one good night of sleep the entire time. Because
yeah.
it was always, no matter who I shared a room with, they always made some kind of noise. I'm a very light sleeper.
Oh yeah. Doing a movie like this, like a horror film, does it put you more on edge when you're kind of filming it? I mean, what's kind of like the vibe around being with a crew while shooting a horror movie, especially something that's kind of like, intense and personal, like a film like this? Was there more of like a sense of dread doing it? I mean, what's like the overall vibe of people when you're shooting such a kind of intense film like this?
No, I mean, I can't really say that. I mean, other than the rape scene. The rape scene was the build up for that was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, we all had all worked together before, so
Hmm.
we're really good friends.
Yeah.
And it was actually more like, being in summer camp or something with your best friends,
Yeah.
just having a good time, laughing a lot, and everybody there is a horror fan as well. So if
Hmm.
anything, it's like, oh, it's going to look so cool,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. It's really not tense at all. The rape scene, at least for the beginning,
Yeah.
was really, I mean, it was really tough.
Hmm.
And everybody was like quiet as a mouse. And everybody's
Yeah.
like looking at each other like, oh my God, how are we going to do this? But then the actors who had started drinking during lunchtime started cracking jokes, and then we couldn't all stop laughing. It's like we had all this, tension built up.
Mm.
So when they started laughing and we started laughing, then nobody could stop laughing.
Oh
It
boy.
was the weirdest thing you could imagine.
Yeah. It's like we're trying to shoot this real serious scene and nobody can kind of control themselves at that point.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever laughed so hard on a set. To be honest, I was like hysterical. They
Was
were
it?
just so funny.
Was that one of the last?
Get them drunk.
Yeah, yeah. Just get them. Yeah, I mean, just do this. Whatever's easier for them to get through this. Was that one of the last scenes that you guys shot for filming, or was that in the middle, beginning? I mean, was it like a big build
It was
up?
it was in the middle of shooting, but it was the last scene between the 2 actors.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
so so that was it.
Yeah.
That was how we ended their scenes together.
Okay.
Since 2 of the actors are in one half of the scenes, and 2 of the other actors are in the other scene. There's only really one scene where all 3 of them are in at the same time.
Yeah.
So
Well, another big scene in the film too was with Anelia McGinnis, where she has her reveal. Of what what her rapist did to her and everything like that. Was that a hard scene to shoot as well? Because I know her story. She had a double mastectomy, so used it for she was more than proud or more than happy to kind of like do the scene. But what was that scene like too, and using something that really happened to her in the film and kind of using it for like a different reason?
yeah, I mean, I wrote this scene. I wrote that scene after I spoke to her about it.
Hmm.
I usually don't like to have nudity in my films.
Yeah.
So this was going to be like the first time that I had anything remotely, nude, even though it wasn't going to be sexual at all.
Yeah.
But she had posted a picture of herself after the mastectomy,
Mm.
where she was dressed up like the Bride of Frankenstein. So she had like the big, the big hair.
Yeah, the big flat top and everything.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and then she was topless, and then she had her scars
Mm-hmm.
from the surgery, and then she had added more scars throughout her body. That was her Halloween costume, and she was basically topless walking around like that.
Oh wow.
And yeah, because I mean, I think she really just gives an opportunity to show people, look, this is not the end of the world.
Yeah, of course.
And you get a diagnosis like that, you're not. You kind of have to make lemonade out of lemons, and
Absolutely.
you can't act like it's the end of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to be defined by whether I have scars on my breast or not. So she has to this day continued this campaign on how to empower women to be able to survive breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw that picture originally, I was like, oh my God, that looks just so gruesome.
Yeah.
I know I'm supposed to feel like it's empowering, but it's just so difficult to look at.
Yeah.
So I asked her, I was like, okay, if I wrote a scene doing that,
Mm-hmm.
using that, would you be offended by that?
Yeah.
And because to me, as a woman myself, I like that having somebody do that, it's almost like worse than the rape itself.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Just because it's, that's something you're going to have to look at for the rest of your life,
Yeah.
kind of thing. The emotional scars you might be able to overcome with therapy, but that's something you're always going to look at yourself and be reminded of that.
Yeah, of course.
So I just like, wow, that would just add that additional sting to the entire situation.
Yeah.
And it's also a way for her to prove that it actually happened, right? Because there's a doubt as to whether she was raped or not.
Exactly.
So I asked her if it was okay, if she felt comfortable, or I'm like, am I abusing
Yeah.
the situation? What do you think? So, I mean, you could use another actress and just have it be completely special effects. We still, by the time that we shot, she had her scars had healed a lot, so we actually had to enhance them. And I said, would that be okay? And she was like, absolutely. If it makes sense for the story, do it. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and if anything, it brings more awareness, hopefully, to other women who may have cancer or something like that too, and they may ask questions like, okay, that's part of the plot, but also, is that something practical? Did something happen to her? And if anything, hopefully, it raises some awareness for taking care of yourself, getting your checks and everything like that, especially when you're telling the story now about how that came to be. It wasn't just some effect, it was something that really happened to her, and the fact that she was able to, if anything, bring more awareness in some way, shape, or form with the film too, that's even more important. It seems like this film is built on a lot of awareness, a lot of social awareness, a lot of health awareness, and also just making the fact that people who are either accused of rape or have been raped and things like that too. I think you said it's like a cancer. So there's two ways of talking about cancer here. There's like what Anelia went through, and then also just the fact that rape is still a horrible burden on our society. That people either come forward and can confront their rapists now, which it seems like a lot of people are doing now, or people are still hiding because they're shamed. Unfortunately, a lot of people still shame people for, being raped in our society. It's like it's not their fault. There's a lot of fault to go around, but you shouldn't be, shaming anybody for having something horrible happen to them too. So.
Well, lately, I mean, what has been on the news a lot lately is people getting away with it.
Absolutely,
like literally getting slap in their hand. Well, you had a promising life. Yeah, so did she.
Yeah.
Or before, her life was ruined by being raped.
Exactly.
And it's been a lot of them. The other day there was one in South Florida where we're from.
Yeah.
About a girl who was, mentally, I don't know if she was autistic or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And she was raped by 4 boys.
I mean, yeah.
And they got nothing.
Nothing.
nothing for what they, what they did to her. It's just awful.
Yeah.
The, lately, there's been a lot of those in the news recently.
Yeah, and think those are just the ones that are in the news. Think of all the ones that don't make it to print, or happen in small towns or small communities where it's hidden behind, like it's hidden behind either you know clergy or police or parents or friends or anything like that too. So it's still just like we know it happens more often than it gets reported, unfortunately. And I guess films like this where there's more awareness, hopefully, because with this film, I mean, do you want it to be kind of a call to arms about, like, look, if these things happen to you, you want to get it out there. Don't be ashamed of what happened. Go out there and make sure your story is told too. Or, I mean, are you looking for the balance between the story like that and also making sure it's a horror movie at its heart too?
I mean, I don't know necessarily. I don't. I know that terming it a horror movie is what's going to sell it, and so I know that the distributor is probably what they're going to eventually, put it under.
Yeah.
I think of it more as a psychological thriller.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of important that people know that, because I don't want them to go, go rent it and then I get the reviews like, it said it was horror, and
Yeah.
it's not horror.
It's like, sorry, guys.
The distributors don't make the reviews, we do.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I mean, ideally, I'm not gonna assume that it's such a small budget, such a small cast, it's such a I would love to one day be in a position where I really thought that my movies will make some kind of difference
Mm-hmm.
in the world. I don't think I'm there now. So it's I'm not going to make myself out to be some kind of big hero. It is mostly for entertainment value.
Yeah.
But hopefully, if it, even if I just go on these, film festivals and I get to talk about it a little bit, and if nothing, it's comforting for me as a woman to know there's men out there like yourself,
Yeah.
from what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
that understand how difficult it is for us. And, I mean, I just did another interview the other day, and he's like, well, have you ever been raped? I'm like, I haven't been raped, but it's come close.
Yeah.
And that's the experience with most of my girlfriends, where,
Yeah.
Even if you haven't actually been raped in what used to be termed date rape, I don't think they're using that term anymore.
Yeah. I think it's as PC as it was, I guess, if it was ever PC at all.
I mean, let's just face it. You either say yes or no, whether you're on a date or not.
Yeah, exactly.
But I've had really, really close situations that was really, really scary.
Yeah.
And I come into work every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I walk around, looking around the entire time because I'm afraid that something's going to happen. It's a reality,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not a safe place for women.
No, unfortunately, it's not. We haven't progressed. It seems like I said earlier, like we feel like we've progressed on certain issues, but there's still so much holding it back. I mean, for women or minorities or immigrants or anybody, it's, of course, I'm speaking from a white male perspective, so it doesn't really give me a lot of legs to stand on or anything like that. But at least if you can empathize and sympathize with people and understand their situation, and unfortunately there's so many people out there that don't. They live in their own little bubble, and as long as they're not being bothered, they feel like the world is working for them. It's like, yeah, the world's working for you, but you got to work together to make the world a little bit better down the line too. So, and to your point, I mean, you don't have to have experienced something to write about it or do a film about it. I mean, just like asking a question like, oh, have you been raped? How do you know what it's like? It's like, I don't have to know. I mean, I have either friends that maybe it's happened to, but putting yourself in somebody's situation is like the best way to understand. You have to have that empathy and sympathy to realize, like, look, just because it's never happened to me doesn't mean, one, it can't, or two, I don't understand their perspective. And in this day and age, it's getting harder and harder.
Say, if I stuck to only writing stuff I experienced, then I would definitely not be writing horror, because I've never been chased by an axe with a guy with an axe.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like not many of us can say that. I've never been sleeping and somebody's entered my dream and tried to kill me and I wake up. So if I like you said, if you only wrote about things you knew, it'd be a very boring place, and we need people to you know keep writing and being creative or just telling stories that are really happening but putting their own twist. And that's where you guys, that's where the filmmakers come in. So it's you guys are doing a great job, and you're doing a great job just staying busy. I mean, 5 films in
Oh,
five
thank
years
you.
of various genres, and but also doing horror, which is my favorite genre. So or in this case, psychological thriller. But you definitely seem to be a person who's always appreciated horror and loved it for as long as they've um, been writing about it in sixth grade, haunted house stories and things like that too. So, so
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
yeah, no problem. Thank you for taking the time. And I guess with this film, I guess you'll be doing the festival circuit now, kind of coming up for September and October and through the rest of the year, like pretty much film screening this film for the festivals.
Yeah, I have. We just did Horror Hound, but then I have Women in Horror Film Festival next weekend, which is
Hmm.
here in Atlanta. So yeah, I don't have to travel for once. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Then I have. I am actually gonna be in Orlando the second week, a freak show, and then in New York for the New York City Horror Film Festival, and I'm getting an award on the 7th, I think it is,
Oh, congrats.
at the Sean O'Shea Film Festival for Woman Director of the Year. I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
what?
Look at that.
I know. So I'm trying to make it to Boston then too. So yeah, it's a lot of traveling.
Hey, but a lot of award-winning director Lou Simon here. So that's or soon to be award-winning director Lou Simon. So congratulations. That's amazing. I know up at
Thank you. I was floored when he told me. I was like, wow, really?
you must,
Okay.
must be doing. I mean, I guess if you're doing the job, you don't really expect anything from it. You're just kind of like, okay, this is the job. This is what I'm doing. But then when you're recognized by other people, it's kind of like one of the more flattering things that you can have. It's like, oh, some people are watching, and I guess that kind of keeps you going as like a director or writer. It's like, well, I'm being awarded. Somebody must care about what I'm doing right now.
Somebody
So,
must, especially because there are a lot of bad reviews out there.
oh
I mean,
yeah,
you,
well,
you read on IMDb the trolls.
yeah.
I mean, I had somebody in my last film comparing my film on IMDb to Twilight and saying, well, Twilight did this better. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me?
It's,
Twilight? I mean, that's made for hundreds of millions of dollars, and you want to compare that to my low
yeah.
budget horror film? I mean, how you even compare the two things?
Yeah, it's like, well,
Uh,
thanks, I guess, for comparing it to a multi-billion-dollar franchise, but not really in the same ballpark. But thanks anyway for the
I,
review.
yeah, like, well, okay, give me those 100 million. I could make a better movie than Twilight for that.
Exactly. Give me a chance.
So I mean, and that's the kind of things that you have to deal with. So I mean, it's very easy to just listen to the negative
Yeah.
and feel like, what am I doing? I'm such a fraud. I shouldn't do this again. Blah blah blah. So whenever you do get some kind of nice feedback, I mean, I get since my films are in other countries, I
Hmm.
get emails and messages from all over the world saying, "Oh, I watched your film and I loved it." I'm like, wow! Not only did they watch the film and loved it, but they went out of their way to find a way to contact me to tell me that. That
Exactly.
feels great.
Yeah, that's a
Because I
fantastic
watch a
feeling.
lot of movies, I never think of sending a message to the filmmakers to tell them I loved them. So
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, they liked it enough that they did this.
Yeah, I mean, it did something to them. They were like, "Wow, I really like this film. It was great. Thank you for making it." It's like you don't really. It's like kind of like old fan mail from a long time ago. If you would get fan mail in the mail, like, "Dear Lou, I loved your film. It changed my life." It's like you don't really get a lot of that. Pretty much all you get now are people reviewing the films or putting their little review in the internet and saying like, "Oh, this movie sucked," or "I like this movie a lot." It's like, well, thanks for the substance. You don't really. Thanks for watching at the end of the day, but everybody wants to be
And
a
the majority of
critic.
people who are, it's like Yelp.
Yeah,
The majority of the people who are going to leave reviews on businesses, on films, or whatever, are the people who don't like it.
exactly.
And it's so subjective because everybody's gonna have people have different tastes. So
Hmm.
somebody else likes a movie, but they don't think of like, oh, let me go leave a good review because they have a life.
Yeah, exactly.
You
It's like,
know,
yeah,
and they watch 80 movies a week. So especially with Netflix and all that stuff, you watch so much content. You don't think of going to leave a nice review
yeah,
because it's too much time.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
most of the time, what you do get are the people who don't like it, and they have the right to their opinion.
Hmm.
But that's not the only opinion.
Of course, they're
And
they're the vocal minority. All the people that are leaving the bad reviews and everything because they have nothing better to do, I
they
guess.
seem to have a lot of free time on their hands.
Exactly.
God bless them. I wish I had that much time.
Yeah, I mean, if I had a dollar for all the times that people were like, "Oh, your podcast sucks," or "Your website's this or that," it's like, and then you fall down the rabbit hole of trying to defend yourself, where it's like, why am I defending myself against people that are saying you aren't good? It's like, I've learned to not lose sleep over it anymore, and I guess everybody else has too, because I'm sure at some point in time everybody's been called either a hack or a fraud or you're not doing it, like quit what you're doing. If everybody just heard that the first time, we wouldn't have a lot of great directors or writers still working. We wouldn't have anybody. Nobody would be doing anything except complaining on the internet, I guess, at this point.
Right. Yeah.
Oh well. Well, I guess that thanks for ranting a little bit with me. I guess we kind of feel the same way about certain things when it comes to that. It's kind of the way it is.
I got to vent.
Exactly. Well, thanks for your time today, Lou. I really appreciate it, and congratulations. And keep going. And it seems like this seems like a big year for you. So once again, congratulations.
Yeah.
Doing a great job. The film was great. I think it was, it told a personal story, but it also, is satisfied like people who like horror as well or psychological thrillers as well. It was just a very well made movie for such a small budget. It was done expertly, and the acting was great, and overall just great job. And thanks for once again taking the time and just talking about the film and talking about what you have going on.
To find more about Simplistic Reviews, visit simplisticrieviews.net or follow us on Twitter at SimplaTweeters, Instagram at Simplagramming, and of course Facebook.com/SimplisticReviews. Podcasts are found on iTunes, TuneIn, Google Play Music and YouTube. For Simplistic Reviews, I'm Julie. Thanks for listening.